Top of the morning to you. I hope you're all fine and dandy and keeping ahead of the game. Remember, it is a game and each one of us must play a part. So welcome everyone. We're back in Aberdeen, in particular a place known as Torry, AB11. And if you've seen my other videos, Starfort Citadels and Ancient Salt Waterways, I think it was number 6 or 7, I actually highlight Torry. In all fairness, to those who live in the area and those who are locals, I'm going to be looking at not just Torry, but Balnagask and the Torry battery. So, what we're looking at here is 3, possibly 4, no, 3, absolutely 3 starforts. And here they are. I'll just put them overlaid here. Now, I get a lot of people coming onto my page and seeing the various work that I cover. And as I've started doing these recordings, people have been asking me, what are starforts? Now, if you go onto my Facebook page or on this YouTube channel, if you type in what are starforts, there should be a video coming up and it actually explains on there what starforts were or are, because they're still there. I'm going to take a dive down into Torry and I'm going to show you the boundaries of this starfort, the boundaries of Balnagask starfort and the Torry, what's known as the Torry Battery or Nigg Bay Golf Club starfort. And I'm going to show you where these waterways went, the width of them, the size of them. At the moment, I've looked at Altons, but I haven't done a video on Altons because it's a very large industrial estate, and I need to be, I don't want to be wondering about industrial estates, but I need to be on the ground to find the boundaries of what was the starfort. I actually think I found it. I think this is it here. But at the moment we're going to look at Torry, because I did in previous videos, but I just passed over certain things. And there's a lot here, an awful lot. And there's an awful lot of history, a lot of old buildings like the St Vitus's Church. You have, even on Victoria Road, you have some very large buildings lying derelict actually, such as the school here. Such a sad state of affairs, an amazing piece of machinery and equipment in its day. Not a school, but that's what it was repurposed for. So there are some amazing buildings there, but what I want to do is take it slowly, because I get a lot of naysayers coming on and saying starforts aren't everywhere. No, well, they are everywhere, and I can prove it to you. Ferry Hill, we'll look at that next in the next video, and probably Tallis and Altons we'll look at. But today I want to be looking at Torry. And for anybody who's familiar with my work and familiar with other people's work on starforts and energy devices and free energy, they should be able to see this starfort here. And even the names, this is what I'm going to show in this video, even the names of the places, the street names today, give clues to what they were in their former days, the areas. So we're going to have a little look at on the ground, and I'll show you the walls of the starfort. So this is the point here, obviously, Victoria Road. This is a foot here, and then we have another foot here over at the sort of D-side bridge there. So, and I used to travel up and down from Aberdeen to Glasgow when I was a child, and I used to pass this bit here in particular, and I used to think, this is strange. What's this all about? I mean, the houses are a way back, and then you've got all these trees that are put in. Obviously they put that in to give them some sort of privacy in the garden, because this is a very busy road. This is the south road heading towards Dundee, Perth and so on. But I used to pass this as a child and daydream in the back of the car or the back of the bus and look, and it was always on my mind as I came back to Aberdeen. When I woke up or I looked out the window, I'd see these walls as I came in, and I knew exactly where I was. But it's only now as an adult I begin to realise what these walls actually are. And this is what I'm going to show today, because this here is the foot, another foot of the Starfort. So we have, let's turn it back round to try and keep, for people who aren't familiar, we'll try and keep it in the same direction. So we have a foot here. Now what I say to people is everything's geometry. Everything that manifests is geometry. Everything's electrical frequency and waves, and everything's geometric. So you see the geometry here. You see them in all the Starforts. You see the geometry. But Starforts, this is the thing that I have been discovering. I began my journey when I was about 12. Really, when I was about 12, I started mapping standing stones. And when I was doing the mapping and going to these places as a young boy, I would have to climb hills and with peaks, and at the top of these hills were the standing stones. And I used to think, wow, I can't wait to get up to the standing stones. But I always knew there was a challenge ahead, that it was always going to be a climb uphill. Although some standing stones are not in such a steep embankment, but most of them are on a high and raised place. So this here, Torry itself, is a hill, and anybody who's familiar with Torry, you'll know that, you know, I'll drop down, you go down onto Victoria Road, and sort of, yeah, from here the chemist upwards, from that chemist there, from Walker Road, and this road here, can't remember the name of it, is it Crombie Road? From here onwards, it's a trek, it's uphill, it gets steeper and steeper and steeper. Now, and if you were to go along, we'll look at this building too in a moment. If you were to go along by the library here, in fact not this one, yes it is this one, yeah. If you were to go along by the library here, you come to fairly straight, fairly level, but it does start to climb. And you have this big chapel here, and everybody should know that if you're familiar with Torry. And then you have this shop. Now, mudflood properties, people are everywhere, but Torry has an abundance of mudflood properties. And all the way up here you can see that this is all mud flooded. But from here onwards it begins to get really steep. So you've got this chapel sitting at the bottom of a very steep hill, and when you come to sort of Mansfield Road, again you can see it's very steep. And notice the terrace steps, that's very important. In my recordings I talk about Starforts, and something that I haven't really talked about much, but I do on my Facebook page, is that the earth is made up of pyramids, giant pyramids, and Starforts are those pyramids. Now, if you are familiar with Balnagask and Torry, you'll know this building no longer exists. But what a building! I was talking about geometry a moment ago. Now, if you imagine the geometric frequency, a wave moving across the top of a hill, which is really a pyramid, you can see why they built this machine to harness that energy. And of course this school has now gone, and I'll just go down and show you. I think it's just the last time I looked, it's just derelict. Well, nothing. It's nothing now. But this here is the very, very tip or the top of the pyramid. And if you stick with me in the video, I'll continue to show you more, because as we go round to the back of the school, this back end of the school here, for anybody again who's familiar, if you go down onto Balnagask Road and we look up towards where the school is, we can see it's a hill. And it's not just a hill, it's a hill with a wall all the way around it. Now, these are old original homes. These sat here on the banks, on the terrace of a giant waterway, which sat on a pyramid. And all these houses here are all terraced, because this here, including the railway line, was an ancient waterway. And this ancient waterway passed around the back of the Starfort. You can see the foot of the Starfort here, 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 and down here, and it may have had a foot or point there, and then there's the other point, and as I pointed out, haha, another one there. That strange part that I used to drive past and think, why is the wall like that? Because that wall is part of a Starfort, or part of the foot of a Starfort. Now, many people will know what Walker Gardens once was. In fact, they've got a little plaque thing down there, I believe, telling you what it once was. It, of course, was HMP Grampian Prison, which when I was a young boy, in my 20s, I spent a little bit of time in there and became very familiar with the original inners of the buildings. And I was on an A hall, which was somewhere here, and B hall was here, and B hall was remand. And you had the front gates and the women's part here, and there was a tower here, I don't know if it still is, a clock tower you went in. Now that clock tower had a steeple, and there's a reason why that clock tower had a steeple. And it did have, back in 1990s, a large metal rod on its roof. I think that could be it was there anyway. But when I spent time in prison, when I was foolish and young for drugs, I was a passman, a reception passman. So I got the freedom to walk around the prison, more or less. I had access to areas that other prisoners didn't. And the prison itself, like most prisons, was surrounded by a large 18, 25, 30 foot wall, and it was on a raised bank. But the buildings themselves, including the cells, when you they were all concrete floors, but they had pipes, water pipes. Hot water would run at the back of just under the window, which is pretty silly really, because in the winter it was freezing, because the heat just escaped out the window and you couldn't close the window. It was like glass vents. But anyway, when you look down the back of the pipes, and the pipes that went down into the basement, there wasn't a basement as such, but I used to look and I used to see that there was at least another 2-3 feet behind the pipes down the back inside my cell. And of course when you're in prison you think, oh, I could go down under there and maybe escape. So, but this old building, it was an old building, the prison did have another level below, that's for sure. But it was part of a foot of the Starfort, and that's why it had the big wall around them. Because Starforts in their existence, when they existed and functioned, brought the salt water in through these canals, and through all the canal ways they would fill up. And these terraces, which we have as streets today, where houses are, terraced houses are, a lot of these houses were actually built, the old buildings were all built in the water. They were built in the waterways, much like Venice, and their purpose was to harness the energy. And Aberdeen is the granite city, and granite's one of the most conductive energy sources, apart from metals and like gold or silver or titanium or what have you. But granite's highly conductive because it does have all these metals in them. And yeah, Aberdeen is a miserable looking city because it's just grey, but there's a purpose for it. There's a reason why they used the granite, and they built up these terraces. These are charge houses, these churches. Now, I want to show you something very important. Most people who live in Torry don't know about this. You'll see that this here, these tenements, were built in the 1800s. They're like a wall. Yeah? Well, that's what they are. They were the wall, the breaker wall, for the Starfort. So you have a Castle Hill Housing Association, which used to be a chapel and so on. These would bring these would have big salt pans here, and the salt water would come in and deposit the salt, and the buildings, such as the church here, would draw into its basement through tunnel systems under the road, which became sewers and drains. They would draw into the basement the salt water, which then they would use the electricity and the ether, which Nikola Tesla and many others, gatekeepers, spoke about, and they would pull that electricity down. Now, these here were salt pans. This is why, and these here were canals. This was a canal. And if you know anything about starforts, you'll know that there are various canal systems as you approach a starfort, winding you in till you get to the centre, to the citadel. And one thing I did say there I wanted to show, which is very important, is this large wall here. At the beginning of the video, I dropped down into Crombie Road and Walker Road, and I said that from here onwards it becomes very steep. And then I pointed out the pyramid here, going up the foot of the Starfort. But one thing I have noticed, and I've known for a wee while now, a few years, is this here at Crombie Road has a large wall going all the way along it, and of course the City Council are on the wall. You see the wall? Now, they put industrial merchants, corporations, trading on the waters, because all this here, including these buildings here, were all built in the water. These are new ones, right enough. They weren't built in the water. But these ones here, these were built in the water, sitting in the water. And these were electrical devices. There's a mud-flooded property right there. So there's another level or two below that. So there was a giant flood, or a massive flood, what we call the Great Catastrophe. Because people often ask me, well, why can we not use these starforts again? Can we not repurpose them? Well, there was a giant flood, and this waterway here, this would have been a waterway. This is why industrial units were built in it, and so on. And not just that, it's pretty sick actually, because our schools, these were not schools, these were machines pulling the water, pumping stations. Schools were normally pumping stations, and that's why you see the two towers on either side, and you've got these two things. These were pumping the water in from this salt lake, salt canal, and they couldn't really build on this land. You see it everywhere. You can see the roughness of the land. It's boggy, it's swampy, but here they managed to build upon. And of course it's merchants, corporations, traders, dead living entities. And I'm saying that dead living entities because these waterways are highways between the stars. So what is Torry? battery. Torry Battery too is a large starfort, and in all fairness, it's been called Torry Battery, but it's actually Girdleness. The area would have been known probably as Girdleness, or Nigg, or Synthetics. And there's the foot of the starfort at Synthetics here, the Synthetics Church. This is not a natural harbour. You can see here at the back in Nigg Bay, it's Aberdeen's second harbour. So when Aberdeen Harbour gets full, they go into this harbour here. But this harbour is completely man-made. We have got Scottish Water, Scottish Water here, it's just a massive concrete industrial unit. And to build these sort of units, they need to put in vast amount of concrete and cement, and so it blocks up. This here has been blocked up deliberately over the last couple of 100 years certainly. But this here was a vast waterway, and this vast waterway stretched the full width from Synthetics Church, and that of course is why the church with the wall, which is a salt pan. People were never buried here. This was a machine, and the water came through this area here, this entire area, around the back of the starfort, and I'll put the image in showing you the starfort of Girdleness. I should have shown it at the beginning. I did show it at the beginning. So this was a giant waterway at the back of here, and the water came all the way around. I was speaking about Aberdeen Prison and my experience there. This would have been a giant waterway, and of course there's the railway line which we've seen earlier on, and merchants again, Screwfix, Arnold Clark, this all sitting in the water. See, these people who are all high-ranking masons that own all these businesses, do they know this? Do they know that their premises are sitting in what was ancient waterways? And these ancient waterways are highways, as I said. I hope you're keeping up. These ancient waterways were the highways between the stars. So it was the highways for the stars, which means the angels, the angles of light. So these houses, they tell us under the law that we're all lost at sea. And we are. Many of us are. If you're in the poorer area, way up here, you're still lost at sea, but you're well out of the water. But people down here, and this is the same all over the world, people down here are actually in the waterway. Our football pitches, our swimming pools, our schools are all sitting in the waterway. This here, these flats are showing the foot of this starfort here, which is Balnagask, you see. That's the foot of the starfort, and these flats here also. Again, everything is geometry and everything's resonating frequency. So they can't just build willy-nilly. Everything has to be, I don't know, but willy-nilly people would understand. They can't just randomly build. My people abroad and other countries might know what willy-nilly means, but these are planned. This is why housing regulations and planning permission is so tight, because this here is the starfort, and this here is the feet of the starfort of Girdleness, and it goes up into Abbey Square, and it goes down to the school, the old Torry, Victoria Road School, and then the foot comes down here once again. So this is a star, and there's the foot here. I used to pass this bit as the allotments, and the other thing as well, say wherever you find allotments, that's where the water was. Of course, it's deposited all the nice minerals, but wherever you find allotments, you're in a waterway. So these people who know of the existence of these starforts, these people who know of the planning regulations and the buildings and the designs and even the towers, where they need to put the towers, these people who know, how did they drain the water? How have they managed to hide this from us? Well, really it's through the media, through indoctrination. And when you send 300 children to something that once sat in water, Where's that school now? It's further along. That water being a highway for angels or angles of light. Entities. That's why we don't know. We are not only indoctrinated not to see this and not to know what these buildings were built for and the purpose of them. We're actually a docking station for entities which cause confusion and distortion to the reality in which we live in. So they don't want us to know that this here was a giant waterway, that all this here was a waterway. And I was going to say, you can even see it in the names. We'll jump down to here, the back of Craig Inch's prison. The name of the road is Polwarth Road. Now, Polwarth is the word Paul, the word Paul, and it means a burn or a stream, polish, so it's water. But the name of the street is Polwarth, and the word Paul means higher point, a Polwarth, a high point, a looking out place down on a valley of water. And so the name itself still there, Polwarth, a high ridge looking down into a valley of water, a lookout point. And Balnagask Road is flat. Polwarth Road is flat. Completely flat. Yeah, compared to the other part of Torry, which was all uphill. And the prison, these are the new flats here, but the prison wall, maybe we should go to that, should show the prison wall, or the old prison wall is right here. That's it there. So this is the end of the high point looking down into the water, basically. And as we go further along this road, you have Kerlock Place. It tells you Kerlock. It's a loch. There was a loch is a lake of water, a body of water. So this was a body of water. It became a lake or a loch because it became an isolated body of water after the flood, which blocked up all these waterways. And as I said, Halfords, Torry, Aberdeen, all the merchants sitting in the waterway. And of course the railway line uses the bank of the waterways. And then we move into, well, soon I said that I would look at Kincorth, and we will. This waterway comes around the back of Torry, and it would empty into the Dee here on this flat area, this area here. The waterway came down here, Greenwell Road, a well, and it would feed into all this area here. And this is why it's all park, this here, and all green and shrubbery, because this was a waterway. They couldn't build in it, and they still can't build in it. And this here, the width of this was the waterway. But let's skip back a bit, because Kincorth Hill is a boundary line. There was water here too, but Kincorth itself, just like everywhere, is a starport. I'll do a separate one on this, but the Kincorth St Nicholas Church is the foot, and the Kirkhill Primary is a foot of the starport, and you can see it here. These are harbours. The foot comes up here, and the foot comes up here as well. And now you have this big road right through the middle of it, dedicated to Provost Watt. But that was a huge waterway which fed into this waterway that runs at the back of Torry. So I hope I better cut it short, because I can't expect people to watch 45 minutes or an hour, but there is so much more. I wanted to go down and show the wall all the way along here. This is the wall of the starport here, and of course these would have had pinnacles and points coming out. Some of these old buildings being the pinnacles and points, and that there being a different starfort altogether, the Balnagask. So thank you very much for watching. There'll be more to come. We're going to have a look at Kincorth next, and we're going to make our way up through Bankery, Calth, Bealdside, and show this ancient waterway that existed all the way right through, following the chemtrails, all the way through Cairney and all the way out. There's some water there at Echt, but where they've blocked it now. But this was an ancient salt waterway that went all the way up to Elgin Forest and Burghead and overhead Lossiemouth. These were ancient waterways that ran through, which are now roads, as above so below. Now I did say I was going to cut it short, but I'm going to end this because I don't want people thinking too much. Now, but just before I finish, what is the Star Fort of Torry, or Balnagask? What are they? Well, the House of Cepheus sits, the House of Cepheus constellation above, sits from here down this way, and this is just roughly, I'm just showing you. And Torry is the bright star that sits just off Cepheus, Alpha Cephei, and Balnagask is the next star. And all our cities and towns are laid out according to the stars. So you've got Easter Quarty Stone Circle, which is in Inverurie, which sits over the land of Delphinius, or the Adelphi, which is known as the Adelphi, and so that's why we see Inverurie shaped like a large dolphin or a large fish. And then you've got Port Elphin, Dolphin, Adelphi, and then you also have here in Aberdeen the Adelphi. So, and the waterways are around the houses. If you know what the house is above, the waterways sit aligned, or the ancient. This is how I'm able to find the waterways, because they follow. There are variations of water coming in, because this here is the great waters of the Abzu, where you would pass from the underworld, or the lower world, up into eternal life, which sits over Arthur the Great Bear. But you have to go through the House of Cepheus, and these ancient waterways were our ancestors' maps here on earth as it is above, then their journey to everlasting life, basically. Thank you very much. I will stop now. Oh, 333.